You know what I mean?
Hello and welcome to You Know What I Mean, a podcast about interesting things with interesting people. My guest today is Missy Megginson, and she's a founder of the Beauty Playbook. Hi, Missy. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Very good, very good. Thank you for coming here.
Thank you for having me.
Very excited. I've been a big follower of Beauty Playbook, a big fan, and love what you're doing on it. I still haven't seen anything about Vagaro yet, but I'm sure it's coming at some point.
I have something to say about that,
Oh, you
actually,
do?
because we just did the Vagaro roadmap talking about the 2026 features that are coming out. Yeah,
All
we're
right,
doing some
nice.
roadmaps for software, which I'm excited about because I think it's important for the industry to kind of be paying attention to what other softwares are doing and make sure that they're choosing what's best for them. And it's no secret that Vagaro is the software that I have run my business on. So it was the first roadmap that we did.
Very good, which is why it's my favorite blog in the beauty industry, by the way. So,
I appreciate that.
So tell me a little bit, we usually talk about people's life in this podcast. Tell me how you started in the hair industry and your life journey. Just how did all of this happen?
Yeah, so I graduated from high school when I was 17, and I pretty much had acquired my associate's degree. And then I decided that I didn't want to finish college. And I went to my mom and I said, I think I want to do hair. And she was not thrilled. And that's a story for a lot of stylists that their parents are not super thrilled about the decision to do that. But I was going to have to pay for my schooling on my own. And so I just kind of wanted to start a career and start making money quickly. And so I just did. I just decided to do it. And so I did. And then I went out on my own about 2 years in and have been an independent stylist pretty much my entire journey. So 2 years in, I was 20 years old. So fast forward 22 years, I've been an independent stylist, owned a 10-chair salon. And in the middle of that, I owned a couple different franchises with my husband at the time. So we had 2 Jimmy John's sandwich franchises. Have you heard of Jimmy John's?
I think so.
Yeah,
it was. I don't know. Do they have them in California?
I don't know. That's a great. But do we think they? I guess maybe they have them in California. But their tagline was a freaky fast sub. I know way too many things about how to source tomatoes and turkey.
All right.
And then we had an insurance franchise, but the common denominator and everything that I kind of become obsessed with is how to kind of run your business in a way that feels sustainable for the life you want. My industry of choice would always be beauty, so I always kind of land in that space.
So why hairdresser at 18? Were you already into making your friends' hair? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was doing friends' hair for prom and things like that. I actually interned so my first job was at this little pizza place. We're actually just reminiscing about this. We all have our first whatever our first little job is. Mine was at a pizza place. And then my senior year in high school, I interned at an accounting firm. And so I was in an office in the file room, back before files were online, the old school, and there were no windows. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And so I kind of had whatever the life crisis is that happens at 17, which I'm actually watching my daughter have right now, where you're I have to decide my life right now. And hair felt like something where I could have a job, make money, but also do it in a little bit of a non-traditional way. And so it was super
on your
appealing
own time,
to me.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so 18, you decided to become a hairdresser. I assume you went to beauty school.
Yeah, in Virginia, it's really cool. You can do something through the state called an apprenticeship. So you are doing all of your practical hours on the floor of a salon that has actually signed up within that state. So I right away was on the floor at a salon. I was basically a shampoo girl and an assistant, and then doing my practical hours. And then I would go to night school for all of my theory classes.
So you became a booth renter in 2 years, which I feel it's probably a record.
I mean, I'm sure people have broken that record for sure, but I did do it quickly, yeah.
So what's the secret? How many customers, repeated customers, do you think you need to have before you decide to become an independent?
It's interesting you say that because I never made my valuation on customers. And now that you're asking me this, I have numbers to run because you are looking at this from an analytical standpoint that I haven't. I always did it on a money-based number. So it was, if I was bringing in X amount of dollars, I knew then I was ready to be able to rent a chair. So it's always important to know the numbers of the area that you're in, right? Because what it might cost in California is going to be different than it's going to cost in Virginia to run it. But for me, I knew that if I was bringing in $2,000 gross a week in services, that I could afford to have my own space. And so that would be my goal. And then however many customers it took to get to that.
And you kind of felt pretty good already that you have a repeating customers that will pay you $2,000 right away.
I went, So it was a little bit of a leap. I knew that I was taking a little bit of a gamble because every time that you make a switch, you have to assume that you're going to lose clients. That's just what happens. You're going to make the switch and do it. But I knew that I had enough of a demand, and I was at a point in my life because I was so young that my personal overhead was not crazy. So that was a great time to like kind of go all in on me. And I kind of went for it and made a ton of mistakes along the way. And I always say, like, I don't know if I would recommend my path, but it is my story. So I use it for what I like to talk about.
Incredible. And I assume the best thing to do if you're going to do something like that is to move to a place close to where you work. So you're not all of a sudden asking him to drive miles you want to keep the same customers, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's so many things that go into it. Proximity definitely comes into play to where you are. Obviously, you want to be smart about, hopefully you have a great relationship with the salon space you're already at, and it's not going to be this crazy thing when you decide to leave. The culture is definitely shifting on that, where salon owners are becoming way more understanding about stylists leaving and coming and going. But yeah, staying close-ish to where going 30 minutes away would have made that a lot harder for sure.
And back then, I mean, that was 18. I mean, I'm not going to say you're that old, but I mean, that was a while ago, right? 20 years ago or something.
Maybe.
Whatever.
Yes, it was. It was 20 years ago.
Okay. So, I mean, I don't think booth renting was like it was just starting, right?
It was
so for you to do
starting.
this and, for them to give you your clients. I remember when I started Vagaro, a lot of business owners had an issue giving their client list
They didn't give me my clients.
Oh, okay.
It was a total old school, like, just figure it out along the way. So I just had a really good photographic memory, and I remembered my clients and I remembered their numbers. And then I had to manually reach out to each one of them, call them, let them know what was going on, put them on my paper at a glance planner, where my whole life lived in this book. And it's interesting because actually fast forward to when I owned my salon, I would, we ran it on Vagaro actually. And when they chose to leave, I could give them the permissions for their calendar and send them on their way. And so then they all stayed in the Vagaro ecosystem too.
And they can open their own account. And
exactly.
I thought that was a very well needed features when we did that.
It was an amazing feature that for like me going out on my own, then if something like that had happened, that client, because imagine like I'm writing on index cards or on my hand or on a Post-it note. So I'm sure I forgot someone, I'm sure there was someone I didn't remember. So that ability to just be able to now pass on a calendar to a stylist or to a service pro that's trying to start on their own journey, like, truly, if you have that relationship with the owner and they give them those permissions with Vagaro, it's like, it sounds super cheesy, but it's a gift. Yeah. Like, it is a gift to pass them on, like, kind of the keys to what their business looks like.
And where would you sign up with somebody else when with Vagaro, you just get all your information moved directly to that account, right?
Okay, so I don't like to talk about this very publicly, but I feel like I should say this in the context of this conversation. So I would, before I started Beauty Playbook, I was helping Schedulicity with their online presence. Basically, I was running their social media and things. So I'm sitting here talking about Schedulicity, but I owned my salon at the time, and the only software that I could run my booth rental process, I had booth rental, commission, and hourly employees, was Vagaro. And so I had to have some really hard conversations with the group that I worked with at that company, because I was like, I love you and I love your software and I love talking about it, but I have to keep my business on Vagaro because it's the only one that I could run it that way.
You know, fun fact, we actually added a feature. So we've been in business 17 years. I think we've had this feature for about 16 years. If you go to Vagaro right now, you can search for a business, but there's our professionals. If you click on it, you can find a hairstylist. So, and the reason I added that, because knowing that some of the hairstylists might move from one location to the other one, and we all know how, I mean, I know from my wife, she's more loyal to her hairstylist than she is to the business, and she wants to be able to find where that hairstylist left, right? I mean, you really, once you find a hairstylist that understands you, knows your style, you know, you don't want to lose that, right? And you want to be able to follow them. And that's why we added this, by the way.
I love that.
Yep. So that's a feature that people can use on Vagaro. Okay, so I don't want to talk about Vagaro too much. It's about you.
Right.
And and then, so you became a hairdresser.
Yeah.
Booth renter, business going well. Sounds like you got married at some point. That was in Virginia.
Yep.
And then you decided to open a sandwich shop. Were you like hungry at work one day and while you're cutting hair?
I actually was working full time, 60 hours a week in Virginia. I was working for myself. I was the main breadwinner. Actually, that could be a pun with the sandwiches, maybe. I don't know. But I was burnt out. I didn't have business education. That really wasn't around. Instagram had kind of like just started. It was just starting. And so the sandwich franchise was an opportunity for my husband to kind of like put his career at the forefront. And so we moved 1,000 miles away from home with our daughter at the time, who was 3, and for this like whole new life. And I kind of was part of that with him, but then I very quickly became a kitchen beautician because people heard I did hair, and it started happening all over again. And
kitchen beautician?
Yeah.
What is that?
That's where you're like doing someone's hair in your kitchen.
Oh, okay.
Kitchen
all right.
beautician.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, because you had to create your clientele all over again.
I did, yeah.
Okay, so your husband working at the sandwich shop. I assume, were you helping in the sandwich shop?
I wasn't in there. I would more just be like, because we had at the time, it was two stores, 40 employees, and I really did try to let that be him. So it was kind of more the background of the operations and how that worked with him. I really let him kind of take that and run with it. But I learned a lot for myself from going through like a corporate, and that was my first what's the word I'm looking for, like brick and mortar lease for commercial property, like all those things I had never been through before. So I learned a lot through that process that I used later in my beauty business. And
then you started building your clientele all over again, and that was in Florida, right? Okay, so how do you do that?
Honestly, it was community. My clientele has always been community driven. That's how I rebuilt it down there. But the way that I really skyrocketed and took off was when I adopted proper marketing tactics.
Right.
And that's when I started kind of positioning myself to do a certain kind of hair for a certain look, and became known as like a brunette. Like, this is very, stay with me here. It was like a brunette, like lived in hair specialist. Was basically that's kind of like what my hair is. That's like what I did. And I started marketing myself on Instagram and started literally just getting DMs from people I didn't know. So that was very new for me, for not to be a direct referral from someone, to just be meeting people through the internet like that. But
were you working at a business, or that's all from your kitchen?
So now I was booth rental. I rebuilt back up. Actually, I lied. That wasn't booth rental. I went into a suite and I sublet a suite. Suites were very new. They were just kind of popping up on the scene, and I met someone who was working out of a suite, which felt like a totally new concept for me. And I was like, do you work on Mondays? And she was like, no. And I was like, well, can we talk to the landlord and ask if I can sublet your space on Mondays? And so then I would only do hair on Mondays. And that gave, at this time now I have two girls, and that kind of became my, what I just thought was like keeping up with something that I loved, but it spiraled into becoming just larger part of my life than I ever could have imagined.
And so all thanks to Instagram.
That initial,
and
that
obviously your hard work, but
no, that really rebuilding, it was community networking, which started, and then Instagram. And then I would say the client retention piece of it, there's so many things that play into that, but I still maintain that your client retention is like you do all this work to get clients in the door, and then it's what you make their experience like before, during, and after.
So is there any tricks about Instagram? Because I hear that all the time. I've been so many beauty events, and I see a lot of influencers go and post, oh, this is what you got to do. But really, what is the trick on that? Like, is it the way you do the posts, the frequency of the posts?
I think there's a lot of things that go into it. It's funny because I would say I could tell you from a technical perspective now that it's pretty much my life, that I look at these things all the time, the quality of your photo and all these things. But if I showed you the first picture that I ever got, I actually teach a class where I show it and I'm like, this picture, and you look at it and it's horrendous. It's a terrible picture. But I'm like, this picture is what started my journey as a specialist in this type of hair, because it's just showing people that this is something you can do. And immediately someone that might have been following you was like, hey, I didn't know you could do that kind of hair. Like, maybe I want to come in and see you. So it's really just taking the work to start putting yourself out there.
Yep. And not being shy about it, right? Just putting yourself out.
Yeah. And that's hard because hair or any service base, you know, any beauty profession feels very personal. And I think that's something people don't realize all the time, is that not only does it feel personal for the person that you're doing the service on, but it feels personal for you as the person performing it. Like, we're our own worst critics. I'm sure you know, anybody in any business is going to look at their product and think, is this the best it can be? And every time you go to post as a beauty pro, you're like, is this good enough? That hair is out of place. I don't know, you know, so.
You're your own worst critic, right? Okay, so that's amazing. So now you're a booth renter, you own a sandwich shop. You get a free sandwich with a haircut. No, maybe not.
Yeah, I was actually really nice. It would pack my girls' lunch with Jimmy John's sandwiches. Highly recommend.
I'm going to have to try Jimmy John's, by the way. I'm getting hungry, by the way, talking about this. What's that?
They make a veggie sub.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's really
I'm going to have to try it. And then what? So you did this for a while. Then you opened a salon, it sounds like, right? And tell me your journey from being a booth renter to opening your own salon.
Yeah. So while I was a booth runner is when I started business education for hairstylists. And that's sort of what has now snowballed into Beauty Playbook and my involvement in the business side of the industry. But it started when I was rebuilding my business, and I would be around stylists that were coming straight out of hair school. And I was like, we got to help. We got to help these people. Like, we got to help. I saw some holes in what the education, not necessarily the education being offered in hair school, but what it was, how it was performing once they came out, right? So it's maybe they were being taught something, but it wasn't clicking. And so that's why I actually opened my salon, because I had this idea on how we could take stylists straight from school and get them to be profitable and six-figure earners very quickly. And I wanted to prove my point. And I'm pretty stubborn and I'm pretty driven. And so I was like, I know if I want to prove my point, I'll just prove it. Like, I'll just open a salon and show that this works. And I mean, it did.
Nice. So you were able to create many Missies, right? That, I mean, you were able to go to the booth rent within 2 years. Were you able to?
Yeah.
You feel like
actually,
you did the same thing
they were between, one of them did it in 12 months. And then, they all became booth renters. And we would set that, like, you are hourly until you reach this point.
Mhm.
You are commissioned until you reach this point. And then once you are consistently hitting this point in commission, you know that you can afford to be a booth runner. And then we would transition them into that.
And what do you think is the most important? I mean, to me, as a hairdresser or any beautician, there's three aspects. There's the knowing your craft and being good at it, right? There's being a good people person. Probably that's part of what makes you successful.
Yeah.
And then the third one is just understanding basic business, right? Money coming in needs to be more than money coming out, right?
Yeah.
Everything, and how to market yourself and stuff like that. But you got to have these three things working first before you can start doing all the marketing and stuff like that, because you got to be marketing the right product, right?
Yeah. And I think, to be honest, I think the basic business, I don't want to say it's more important than your craft, but in terms of your success margins, you can be a really, really, really talented person, but if the business process is off, everything's going to feel off. You're not going to see the results you want.
Okay, so talking about business, what's the most important part about the business part? Outside using Vagaro.
Just kidding. I mean, it depends on which, in my opinion, it's what your actual profit is. Like, is your business actually profitable? So many small business owners in general, but I'll bring it down to what I know best, beauty professionals, aren't actually operating at viable profit margins, but they don't know it because the money comes in so quickly daily in these weird frequencies that you don't realize it's off until you're like, what just happened? And so being aware of your numbers and what you're actually bringing in and the frequency of that, and then what you're actually spending to run it, that might be number one.
So it's important to put the numbers in the software, really, and not always be doing Venmo or cash or something. Even if you get paid through these devices, through these ways, you should really still put it in the software, just so you can get an idea of, okay, this is how much I made this month
100%.
versus how much I spent on, aluminum foil and color products and stuff like that, right? So that
100%.
And then you would know, am I pricing my service the right way?
Exactly. I mean, so many times we're like a dart. Like, I remember when I was originally pricing myself, I had zero logic behind it. It was like, this is what I charge. But I think now we have the ability, obviously, like when I started, it was the dinosaur ages. I call myself a grandma millennial, but now there's software or tools or ways that we can track all of these things. We shouldn't be just guessing at this.
Yep. How often would you say, I mean, a lot of hairdressers, what's the percentage you feel worry about this and versus the ones that don't worry about that? Or maybe they're just making so much money it's not even an issue.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I don't really know. I feel like nowadays everybody's worried about it. It's just sometimes it feels so overwhelming that they don't even know where to start to kind of like start tracking these things, because it feels like you have to figure out so many things at once that maybe they know they should be, but it just feels so overwhelming to start. And like, it's a demanding job on your body, on your time, and all those things. So sometimes they don't realize how easy it would be if they just got started.
Yep. So, which is probably why you created Beauty Playbook, to help them do these kind of things. Tell me about Beauty Playbook.
Yeah, I am obsessed with all things industry related in general. Like, it's actually like I'm a total nerd, but I am obsessed with all things business, because nothing has been a bigger, like, truly, when I say this and it sounds nerdy, but I know we've talked about my story, but I'm a single mom now, and I was able to take this career and make it something profitable where I can support a family, and I've been able to choose and create this sustainable life at all these different steps in my journey, my life has taken so many different twists and turns. So the business side of what it looks like to be a beauty pro is incredibly important to me. And I was the first person to say, I hated online booking. I know I shouldn't say that in front of you.
Oh, I've dealt with people like you my whole life, actually.
And then
I've
when
heard
I
this so many times.
I'm getting kicked out of the building. I can't believe I just said that. Anyways, but when I realized what a difference it could make and how it could have basically catapulted my ability to run my business smarter, simpler, with more time on my hands quicker, that's when for Beauty Playbook, I'm like, okay, let's dive into all of these pieces of technology and what they can mean for your business.
Awesome. So Beauty Playbook been around now for how long?
I think a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very
Well, we
nice.
technically launched on my birthday in September.
Okay.
It was
Same
a big
birthday, it's easy.
birthday.
Mhm.
It was a big birthday. We don't need to talk about numbers, but we
Okay.
launched then. But it's been like a project in the making for about a year.
Awesome. And where do you think Beauty Playbook is going to go in the future? What do you want for it?
Everywhere. No, I'm just kidding. I would love for it to be a known resource. My goal is for it to just be an easy resource where beauty pros can come and learn and leave feeling like they maybe don't have to guess as much, or that they've maybe heard a story that feels inspiring to them from someone else. Or, we've got a ton of media publications in our industry. We don't have a shortage of that, but having something that's really dedicated towards just helping them make their businesses run smarter. I'd love for it to be considered a really big tool for that.
Awesome. Very good. Do you have any questions for me?
No, that
Okay,
feels
that's good.
overwhelming.
All right. Very good. Well, hey, thank you for coming here and
Thank you.
being on my podcast. And, very good luck with Beauty Playbook.
Thank you.
Can't wait to see where it goes.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please remember to like and subscribe to stay up to date. You know what I mean?